great.
Oh my God. Good thing we're doing a show today on viruses, huh, Scott?
Yes. Well, yes. Indeed. Welcome to the apocalypse, brought to you by My Flu.
Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is, of course, the Apocalypse Nerd and Adam Scott Glancy. Scott a little cloggy there, so that's why we decided to do a show on the viral apocalypse.
Indeed. It is time to discuss all the ways that those creatures, smaller than us, that we can't see with our bare eyes, have destroyed civilization.
Yes.
Brought low the works of man.
Absolutely. So, all right, so we got this show this week, and this is actually going to be my last show from this location. As you could see in the background, I got the move apocalypse going on.
Yes, your bug-out bag is the size of a rental truck.
Yes, it is. So that's been a little crazy, just packing, moving, so it's like, ugh. So it's a good thing we're doing it this week because I'm moving next week, and then I should be back up in line for the following week for our regular show. So, yeah, we'll do a show on the move apocalypse. But funny thing, like I was telling Scott folks that some of the places that we were looking at to move, one of them was actually called the Enclave. So I almost potentially moved to a location so I could say, yes, we are broadcasting from the Enclave.
Wow. Well, that would have made our Fallout fans a lot happier.
Yes, but we decided to go with the better, more cost-effective place. So there you go. All right, folks. So like I said, we're going to be talking today about viral apocalypses. Just brief in the news this week. I don't really got a whole lot for you because I've been dealing with the move apocalypse this week. So like I said, I don't have a whole lot for you. All I know is one thing is I've been seeing more of these commercials for the upcoming World War Z, and just the tsunami of zombies. I just can't get past it. I can't. So
yeah, it's as soon as they become cartoons, they just don't give a crap about physics anymore, or it's not a pretty sight. For me. Yeah, a bunch of zombies washing into a bus and turning it over through the force of their tidal action just doesn't look pretty.
No, but I was actually having a Twitter conversation with the guy who runs the postapoc.net network, and he says it was right along in lines with apparently that's somehow was along the lines of the book, and I told him, I can't tell you because I couldn't finish the book. So,
yeah. Anyone who says that scene of zombies washing through the streets like runaway streams of lava or something.
I don't think he said specifically that scene, but he said that somehow was along lines. He's like, I just finished reading it the third time. I'm like, well, sir, that's where our opinions will have to differ. We all can't have the same opinions. So
yeah, he's on crack.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry, but much like the mayor of Toronto or wherever it is that they're having in Canada, he's on crack.
So there's that. I remembered about a movie. It came out like 2 years ago. I've forgotten the name of it, and I finally was able to pull it up again. So I wanted to share this one because I've been trying to think about it. It's called Bellflower. Heard of this?
Nope, that is all new to me.
Bellflower. It's like it comes from. It's like from a European film. It's these guys. They're basically obsessed with Mad Max, so they make cars that are like Mad Max cars with flamethrowers and weapons and shit like that. Like the tagline from IMDb says, because there's a love story in it too. It's kind of weird. It says Bellflower follows two friends on their venture out in the world to begin their adult lives. Literally, all their free time is spent building flamethrowers and weapons of mass destruction in hopes that a global apocalypse will occur and clear the runaway for their imaginary gang, Mother Medusa. It just seems very weird, but interesting because these guys are building Car Wars shit. Could be worth a check out. It is I believe it is on Netflix, so I got to check that out once I move. But something I've always wanted to look at. And speaking of Car Wars, I saw. Did you freeze up on me, Scott? Yeah, you did. All right. Well, while we're waiting for Scott to come back, another thing I forgot to mention last week when we were talking about games was there's a independent, as I'm pulling this out here, game, and I'm going to plug it for the guy, called Outrider. It's basically it was a print-on-demand card game, and now they've done it as not a print and play. Now they've done it as a print on demand. It's a company that I'm using to do these decks of cards. So and it plays out where you have the cards, and you have the cards and these dashboards. It's very kind of Car Wars like, and it seemed very interesting. I'd like to support the independent game manufacturers. So. It was worth checking out. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but it seems very interesting, and it's on scale to where you can actually use miniatures for it. And he designed it specifically so the miniatures could be matchbox-sized cards, which is pretty innovative. So if you wanted to use miniatures for that, so again, Scott's missing all this, so I'll have to tell him about that later. So that was really it I had for the in the news. Nothing too earth-shattering, nothing too dramatic going on here. So, like I said, some of the things we're going to talk about this week are viral apocalypses, bugs, flus, things that cause global breakdown. Kind of like movies like 28 Days Later, Quarantine. There's a movie Plague, 1979, that we'll talk about. And there's books that are related about it too. There's one I'm actually reading called The Earth Abides, an older book that came out. So now. Let's see here, and there are some games. I've actually seen some games. I have an actual game that has some viral apocalypse, and you could add that kind of stuff into anything you want. So, and we got Mr. Glancy coming back here. So, all right, Mr. Glancy, I was just giving him kind of a recap of what we're going to be talking about, some of the movies, books, and things like that. So, and I was mentioning. Let me mention this one first because this will be a quick one. A viral apocalypse style game. I don't know if you remember seeing this in game stores back in the 80s by TriTac Games. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yes. I could grab a copy of it in just a second.
Oh, I got it. I got. Well, I have my digital version, which I bought from a couple years ago. Rogue 417.
Yep.
It's a game that can be used in conjunction with TriTac's Bureau 13 Fringeworthy or the Morrow Project game, which is what interested me because it could be integrated with the Morrow Project. Because basically it takes place in the year 2010. Let me just read the future. The future, I know, the future. It's well, back in like 1980, I guess that was the future. So I guess I give them credit for extending it out a little bit. Just let me read the back because it's kind of amusing. As the flask of Rogue 417 smashed to the lab floor, the technician quickly flooded the area with a bucket of antiseptic and called for help. But this was the Middle East. Aha!
See, brown people are just dumb.
Apparently.
Clearly that's how we destroy it. And we even have a picture of a guy wearing a burnous.
Yeah, let's see the brown guy here.
Dropping the vial. Whoopsie-daisy. That is some racist shit.
It is. So, but it was the Middle East, a savage war zone with special equipment, trained personnel, and ultimate. Let's see here. Ultimate modern containment technology are lacking when it just goes on and on about how the Middle East sucks. That's basically what they say, and they brought the post-apocalypse to the world. So.
Yay!
There you go. So it's basically just a campaign setting that can be used in any one of these games that is a viral apocalypse. That's the only real role-playing game that I know of that has like a setting for a viral apocalypse. I don't know.
I want to point out that the viral apocalypse is pretty good. It's a disease that scrambles people's heads, So everyone goes crazy from having it. Goes crazy. / retarded because it affects all these higher brain functions. So it creates a zombie-like problem, but they're not zombies.
Exactly. So on that note, let's talk about the first thing here.
One other thing I'm going to say about Rogue 417. The introductory scenario, there's an introductory scenario in it where you are National Guardsmen, who were supposed to be guarding a supply depot or something for that's trying to help a city that's falling apart, and you're all in your biological warfare gear, and things are stretched to the limit. I mean, everyone's out there in their gear with their M16 rifle, and I want to say everyone has like 2 magazines of bullets. Like you got 40 rounds, 2 20-round magazines, and you and your team are supposed to guard this building. And during the course of the scenario, there's rumor spreads that there's the cure inside, but there's not enough to go around, and sick people attack the building, and it's a really, really, really well-written, small scenario that would make a great con game, something you can do in 4 hours. And it was I'm actually think it's one of the best things I've ever read as far as a role-playing game scenario goes. It was really well set up, very small scale, and it really has a kind of get by the skin of your teeth survival horror thing going on in it that really works.
Cool. Yeah, again, I always liked this. I always remember. I just always remember as a kid at my local comic book store, game store, seeing it on the shelf, singing, "Oh, it's post-apocalyptic." Because again, I was total. I mean, as much as I'm obsessed with it now, I was really.
You've mellowed.
Oh yeah, I've mellowed out. Yeah. That's why I'm doing. That's why we're doing a podcast about the apocalypse. I was like at a 10. I'm now like at like a 2 now, right? But
yeah, look, it's one day at a time, Jared. Okay, just you have to get through this one day at a time.
Thank you, Alan.
The podcast helps.
Yeah, it helps.
The podcast helps.
It's therapy. So, speaking of like I said, viral apocalypses and zombies, let's talk about a sensitive subject, I think. Let's talk about one of a very good viral film or series of films, 28 Days and then 28 Months Later. Now,
Weeks.
I'm sorry. That's 28 Months Later's next.
They keep scaring us that there's going to be a third movie and it's going to be 28 months later.
So,
not zombies.
Zombies. Thank you.
Let's just go with 28 days and 28 weeks, not zombies.
Yes, I've had many a conversation with people who fight me on this. Not zombies. Okay?
Are they dead?
Are they dead? Are they dead? Simple criteria. Okay, so the enemy after the event, the creatures, did they die, and have they come back to life as an animated, automaton or something like that? No? Okay, then they're not zombies. Okay, because the rage virus in the 28 Days movies. Again, is a rage virus. It fucks with their brain, makes them crazy, makes them violent, but they're not dead. It's like it's bad rabies. So they are not dead because they starve to death. Obviously because they're not getting any food.
They can get shot dead and fall over dead.
Yeah, you can shoot them in the gut, they'll fall down. So now that we've established they're not zombies. And if anybody cares to argue that point, feel free to, because we don't care. They're not zombies.
They're not zombies.
But anyway, so it's a good. I think it's a good series of films. I like the first one. The only problem I had with it was the middle when they had the happy road trip. I wasn't that big on the happy road trip part.
Well, it slows things down a little bit.
Way too much, because it started off kind of slow, but it was tense though. The whole thing with the. Again, everybody remember, spoilers.
Yes,
so,
please. We're giving away everything. If you're listening to this and you're upset because you've heard something that would ruin the movie for you, you're helpless. You're worthless.
Yeah.
Come on.
So if you haven't seen it yet, but again, it starts off slow. But again, the concept. Now, here's something I've heard. I can't remember. Oh yeah, I do remember. Okay, I remember. With the beginning of the movie, the guy gets in a bike accident, he's in the coma, and I remember hearing people later saying that, The Walking Dead copied it from 28 Days Later. It's like, no. The Walking Dead comic book was out prior to that with him, with the main character, with Rick, in the coma, was out before that movie came out. So
so take that, Danny Boyle.
Exactly. So if anything, he cribbed that. Or, it could have been one of those spontaneous, good ideas, which is
That
possible.
that's that's why we haven't. That's why you haven't gone and killed Max Brooks yet, because you're giving him the benefit of the doubt that he hasn't bugged your apartment
No,
for the
well,
last for the last 15 years.
and Nancy can't afford the bail,
The
and
bail.
yeah, after I murder him. But
It
so
is.
again,
It is. It's murder. It's not just murder. It's murder.
murder. So again, good series of movies, a lot of tension. But again, these viral apocalypses, in general, are they start off pretty small. It's all about, again, depend. I've seen different movies where they start small, get bigger, because the viral apocalypse is, number one, it's something you can't see. You can't see it. Where is
Yeah.
it? If it's nuclear, okay, boom, there's the bombs. Here's the
It does
destruction.
have. It's like a zombie apocalypse in that the problem is in all of us.
Yes.
Or it could
Yes.
be hiding in all of us at any moment.
Well, there are similarities, but again, they're not zombie, but there's similarities with it because again, viral. Because again, the rage is well. Let's maybe back up a little bit here. Talk about maybe the viral apocalypse a little bit more instead of diving specifically into movies.
Okay.
Now, the virus or the bacteria, whatever the case may be, it could be man-made. Generally, it is man-made. It's some kind of man-made fuck up. Like we're making some kind of super weapon, or there's been where they've trying to create something that was beneficial to mankind, but apparently it had too many bad side effects and caused major deaths. But generally,
Yeah.
it's something man-made, whether it was for good or for bad.
Yeah. So I mean, for good would be the original Omega Man.
Correct.
Omega Man is biological warfare during World War III, and we're sitting on the sidelines watching the Reds go at each other. What could go wrong, right? Oops! The Ruskies let loose the bug to deal with all those Chinese warm bodies they couldn't handle, and now we've caught it too. The original Omega Man with Chuck Heston is a viral apocalypse. I was going to say that the Crazies. Great
Yes.
viral apocalypse. Two of them.
Yes.
Both movies are pretty good, but I have more of a warm spot in my heart for the original Crazies.
Which I know we've talked about that. I think the remake was pretty good. I kind of I like
Very
that
good.
one as well. I think it was very well done. Now things like the Crazies, as we've talked about before, not every apocalypse is global. Okay, sometimes
Yeah.
like we call them micro apocalypses. It affects a certain area, like a city, a state, a county. So like the Crazies affects, it's more of a micro but now mind you, micros can eventually
Yeah.
spread to be major apocalypses.
The whole horror of the Crazies is not so much the disease, which is very much like the rage virus in a lot of ways.
Yes.
In that it makes people crazy and angry and violent and attack their neighbors and spread the problem. You're on you're kind of, both movies start off day one as it's getting out of control, and there's the very strong implication in each film that it's jumped the fire break.
Yeah.
You can't keep it in contained. Life always finds a way to get out through the cracks and spread to the next place.
And that seems to be a general theme in a lot of these movies, saying it's like whether it's a mankind weapon, and especially, well, I think in the original it was done intentionally, right, to kind of test it.
No, the original one, it's a plane crash. The plane has the virus on board and it crashes. And what was sort of interesting in that one to me was the idea that there's already the military in place in the first Crazies because they're cleaning up the mess. Even the guys cleaning up the mess don't know what it is. They have not been told what they're cleaning up. They're told that it was essentially a plane load of army vaccinations, which, as you know, contains some small percentage of the virus. No one ever told the guys on the ground that what they're really dealing with is Trixie, which is the code name for the bug. It's Trixie. So when it goes into the shitter, it doesn't happen overnight. It's like they're cleaning up, and then oh shit! It's in. Not only is it in the water supply, but it's been in the water supply of the small town enough to to metastasize, to gestate, to finally incubate, and now everybody in town's coming down with it.
Yeah, well, that and they did that. They follow, I think they again in the remake they followed along those lines fairly well, except it wasn't necessarily a cleanup of the plane. From what I remember, they were trying to transport the super bug weapon to a place to be destroyed, and the plane went down.
Yeah,
but they kind of were trying to cover it up. They're like, well, it went down. Let's see what happens. So it had more of the military industrial complex kind of thing going on.
Certainly both of them have that aspect where in the Romero thing, yes, the professionals are trying to deal with it, but at the same time they're trying to stop the bug, they're also trying to avoid blame. And their attempts to avoid blame only undermine their attempts to solve the problem.
Yeah, like in the second one, same thing. They're just sitting back and watching, and then it's going on for a week, and then they're like, okay, when they started seeing the first occurrences, like, okay, we're going to shut down this town to contain it. But again, like we say, it fails. It's always, I think, again, the theme is these movies to show is like, no matter what good intentions we have, we want to try to clean it up. We're trying to do the right thing. You know what? We fuck with nature, and nature's going to fuck us. Seems to be kind of an underlying thing all the time.
Yeah, that we cannot control things that are alive. It's hard enough controlling inanimate bombs that we have our fingers on the trigger. When it's a live organism, when the apocalypse is a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
This bug.
It might not think, but you know what? It multiplies, it mutates, it changes. And that's always the big problem with these things mutate in the natural course of evolution. In these life cycles of these bugs, viruses, bacterias, they accelerate and change at a much more rapid pace than say humans. So you'll get generation upon generation of this virus, and all of a sudden, hey, that's not the thing we were working on. Well, guess what? It's mutated 10 times since then.
Because the life cycle for a virus is so short.
Yeah.
Their generations are piled on incredibly fast. I would also point out that viral apocalypses, although I'm trying to think of one where the only accidental viral apocalypse I can think of, is the Andromeda strain. Although even that, there's an implication that the Project Scoop that brought back the meteorite with the organism on it was deliberately looking for things they could weaponize.
Yes.
So once again, bad intentions result in bad results. But I was going to say that viral apocalypses have a tendency to be, cheaper in some ways, because you don't have to make as a filmmaker, you don't have to make rubble. You can just have buildings, and you can just have all the trappings of civilization.
Empty streets, empty streets and bodies. Yeah, that's all you really need.
The Omega Man was filmed in Los Angeles at 6 a.m. on a Sunday for months at a time. They just went out and shot for half an hour in downtown LA, at the very earliest parts of the day on Sundays, and then just go back to the studio and film all the interiors. So.
Now, speaking of the Andromeda strain, another film from the 70s, I just rewatched last night. Now, I've told you about this film. All right, it's not a fantastic film. You have to really be a fan of that 70s kind of campy, cheesy films, cheap, low budget. It was a film called Plague that, as it was released internationally, which was called in America, when it was released here, was called, I'm looking this up here right now, it was called M3, as in, Mike 3, the Gemini strain.
I never heard of this, but I know you've mentioned, but I've never seen it on a shelf.
Yeah, because it's hard to find. It was never. I don't think it was ever released. It was released on DVD 6 years ago, only in the UK. Now, this is something I saw on TV in the early '80s as a kid, and it always. I was trying to find this frickin' film for years because it was filmed in Canada. It was a Canadian film. It was a Canadian-American combination. Just to read the summary real quick was, an ambitious lab assistant carries out a forbidden experiment and accidentally creates a deadly bacteria which kills her and rapidly engulfs the city.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you.
That's great.
So basically, they were creating this bacteria to make plants grow faster to defeat world hunger, and they have this laboratory, which they say is this, oh, it's this super class level, this and that. It just looks like the frickin' my high school fucking science lab, okay, when the way it was filmed. So, and the thing is, it winds up escaping. Of course, she gets infected, the rats die, and it escapes. And again, this is another one of these anti-military industrial complex things, and it's trying to show the futility, of man, because there's like genetic engineering. It was like the genetic engineering was a big hot topic in those 70s. How we're trying to, create, humans and mankind, alter mankind. So people didn't like the whole genetic engineering thing back then. So they're trying to make a message with this. It was like the only reason the virus got out was because of the ineptitude of the people who built the lab. It was supposed to be like a reverse or like a zero barrier lab where like air only comes in, not out. But of course, they built it just so the air was flowing out. So it infected a bird. The bird went into a schoolyard. A kid buried the bird. The kid died, and then everybody died, and then
it's game on.
It was game on, and it's kind of like how Outbreak does. Like it's kind of showing the progression of how this woman escapes from the quarantine in the hospital, and she was bloody. And everywhere she went, she started infecting people, just by touching them, because it was by contact. She went to get a sandwich, and she paid with his money, which had blood on it, which got the guy who made the sandwiches. He died. They sold this. It just keeps on showing, and then eventually somebody in the lab went overseas, and it shows the progression, the evolution, how it gets everywhere. Now, the way the virus worked, it was like something, I believe it was created basically kind of like fired, like all the electrons in your body fired at once, kind of like an epileptic fit, and overwhelmed you with pain and killed you. It was, it was kind of but again, it was interesting. It was something I tracked down. I got like on eBay or Amazon, somebody actually had the UK version of it, and I was able to get it for like, with shipping, I think like $4. And I was like, you know what? If I was able to rent this, that's how much it would cost me to rent it. I just might as well buy it and add it to the collection. So, but again, so it was during that 70s, when the Andromeda strain came out. So
let me throw out our earliest bug apocalypse that I'm aware of, because we ran across this. Jared was up here in Seattle. We went to the Science Fiction Museum at the Seattle Center, and in the section on apocalypses was an original edition of Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, her 1826 novel, The Last Man, which is a viral apocalypse, a plague that returns to the earth, much like the Black Death, and culls humanity down to, one person out of thousands is surviving. And
remember, when did she write this? In the
1818 she wrote it. It's published in 1826. And it is, of all of her books, it is absolutely the one that got the worst reviews. I was just cracking open the Wikipedia article where reviewers described the book as sickening and criticized its stupid cruelties and called the author's imagination diseased. That she would write something so bleak and horrible, and to which I just want to shake her hand. Fuck you, 19th century romanticism. You can all turn into worm food, just like the Middle Ages. All it takes is the right zippy the virus, and you guys are done. And so I thought I wanted to throw that out because it is, it's old. I mean,
it is. 1826 was published, so.
Yeah.
I have it on my bookshelf. I haven't read it yet. And I also have it on Kindle because actually I think it's free. You can get it off of the Amazon Kindle store for free, I believe. So,
Good.
So if it's on the Kindle store, I'm sure you can get it. It's one because it falls into one of those public domain things. So Project Gutenberg or somebody like that's probably got it. So if anybody wants to track that down and didn't get that, it's kind of a thick book though. I think it's like
there's like four volumes to the story, which is pretty huge. And the main character.
For that time to write such a large volume of story on that topic that was very out there for the time.
Yeah, and he crisscrosses Europe over the course of the story. So you're seeing the apocalypse in Ireland, Scotland, Constantinople, in Greece, all over the Mediterranean. The viral apocalypse affects America. It's absolutely she's writing a global pandemic story. Absolutely.
Well, and that's the thing with this viral apocalypse thing, because it's like you don't know again, if it was a nuclear apocalypse, somebody's got radiation sickness, you could tell. Viral, until it gestates and manifests itself, you don't know. People could be carriers. It definitely generates a sense of paranoia, because it's like you don't want to be near people because you know what, maybe they might have it. You don't know.
Speaking of carriers, we should name drop Carriers.
Yes.
Carriers was a film, came out in what, 2007 or something?
Yes, I believe. Yeah. Seven or eight. I think it was 7.
Starring that kid who's the current James T. Kirk. That's the guy I always remember who's in it. Carriers, 2009 with that Chris Pine kid. Is that his name?
Let me see. I'm looking up right now.
I'm looking at
it. Yep, Chris Pine, 2009, correct.
Very, very low budget film. Very low budget.
But I thought it was very good. It was very
spent their money really well on this film.
And the reason it got released, it was filmed actually. I think 2007. It was released, filmed actually a couple of years prior, but it didn't get released. But then once Star Trek came out with Chris Pine, they're like, "Hey, look, Chris Pine's in a movie," and they released it, which is good that it got released. I think it was a pretty smart film. It starts off the apocalypse. It has already happened, and it is well into it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people left. They survive on the road with their rules. They have like a set of rules, like don't talk to it, don't touch people, don't interact. All these rules they set up that they follow, and then when they break the rules,
people die.
People die.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Because that's the thing with the viral apocalypse. You want people isolate themselves because you don't know who's a carrier. Do they still have it? And then on top of that, again, you get in every apocalypse scenario, the survivors. You get the animals. You get the people who are going to prey on other survivors, kill them, rape them, steal their shit. So you have even more death tolls, and then of course you have even more death tolls besides the superbug, the superflu, the Captain Trips that killed everybody. Now that there's no sanitation, there's no health care, there's no emergency services, people start dying of plague and typhoid and all that shit. Starts killing people off.
Stephen King has a section, speaking of bug apocalypses, there's a section in the expanded The Stand. And again, you mentioned Captain Trips, which is the name of the superflu in The Stand. There's a section that I think I sort of remember being titled, emergency room stories, which is this giant list of deaths, one of these vignettes of people dying because they couldn't get to an emergency room. They couldn't get the kind of medical treatment or help that they could get by calling 911. My favorite being somebody who has a giant... There's a vignette describing a woman who accidentally locks herself in a storeroom while collecting supplies and can't get out and dies of dehydration after 3 days of going crazy and delirious, from lack of water. And she has everything all together. I survived, and I'm going to be great. And she accidentally locks herself in a storeroom. And I'm like, great.
That's what's going to happen. Well, there's something as simple as, okay, you're scavenging, and I just cut myself on a rusty nail. That could freaking kill you. Something as simple as that.
So, and certainly the original BBC Survivors, which we talked about quite a bit earlier, that's another great bug apocalypse. And boy, you thought your problems haven't even started until all the things you count on in civilization go away. Sure, there's not piles of radiation around, but heaven forbid you get a toothache, and have to pull a Tom Hanks where you're going to knock the tooth out with a rock and an ice skate. Yeah.
Things like that make me think about, maybe I should have all my teeth pulled and get dentures to prepare for the apocalypse. You know? I don't know. Maybe you think that's a good idea? Does that sound
Well,
rational?
I was actually relieved when my appendix came out. When I came down with appendicitis and they pulled it out, I'm like, well, at least it's not going to happen on the side of the road
Yeah.
during the apocalypse, where my friends are asking me to bite down on this belt, and I'm sure we'll get it on the first try. It'll no doubt. Fancy.
That was a, now at least you don't have to worry about that killing you. That's one less thing. That's one thing you can take off the list.
Which I remember at least from the TV miniseries of The Stand. There's that bit where they're trying to get an appendix out of somebody, and they're like, "Okay, I got it. I can't believe it. I got it. It's out. Okay, let's sew it. Start sewing it." And they're like, "Too late. He's gone." You know, the surgery was a success.
That's the thing you have to worry about. And then again, we have to worry about, like, it's back to Survivors. Terry Nation 1975 was, after a while, like, they go into the big cities, and those are just cesspools of disease. So one of their friends, one of the crew goes to the city, and it wasn't a big city like London. It was just a city, and he got bubonic plague. Because guess what? That reared its head again. Because it's still out there. It's still there. It just we have vaccinations for it.
But now we have uncontrolled rat populations and uncontrolled tick or flea populations, and so it's making a comeback.
Yeah. So the guy got it, comes back, and he dies from it. So then they start this whole quarantine process of new people coming, because you got to worry about every little thing. So it's not just, again, the apocalypse. That's a viral apocalypse. You have to worry about other real viruses, because it's not just the man-made one that killed everybody. It's nature's viruses, bubonic plague and typhoid
and rabies, which
rabies.
They did a lot of that on Terry Nation's The Survivors. Then of course, there's the things man left behind. The Stand had this whole bit about going and getting, a bomb. Getting a nuclear bomb from the Nellis test range for Randolph Flagg, the Dark Man. And speaking of virus apocalypses, Jeremiah, made for Showtime.
Yep.
That was what's his name who did Babylon 5? Jerry Straczynski. J. Michael Straczynski. This was a cool apocalypse.
Yes.
It's a bug. But it only kills people who've gone through puberty. Yeah, there's a few people who are immune. At some point, they find a little colony of old men, which I thought was awesome, because there's going to be some immunity. But the bug gets out, and it kills everybody who's gone through puberty. So instead of just wiping out society, it wiped out all of society's knowledge.
All the adults. Correct. So. Yeah. That was a number of years ago, like the mid 2000s. For Showtime, they had two seasons of it. It was Luke Perry. Was it Luke Perry?
Yeah. He was one of the producers. So it was. I mean, he was behind the project.
Yeah, it's not a bad. It was a pretty good show. Again, so you have people who are like 12 years old surviving the apocalypse, and then they're is it like 10 years later? I believe.
I think it was 15.
15.
Everyone's supposed to be just under 30.
So they grew up. I mean, so the older kids remember like it was before, and maybe they know a little bit. But then you have the young kids. 5 years old, they don't know shit, So you have that problem, them growing up, and then, like you said, you find the society, and then of course you have, the Society of Older Men, but then you have the whole thing. Well, Scott's favorite thing. Okay, just to give you guys some information, there is a contingent of people who are trying to keep continuity of government going on during all this. They have this secret bunker thing, and they're reaching out, and they come out in biosuits because they're all adults. Because the virus, even though nobody's dying from it anymore, because I guess that child, if you got through it, you built the immunity to it, I believe, because they're all adults now. But if you didn't go through it as a child, puberty, you would die. And they find these people who are spying on them, trying to find out what's going on around them. And when they find the guy, they kill the guy. They're going through his equipment, and they're most fascinated by Scott.
Oh yeah, that was one of my favorite bits. Where they find one of these guys from the secret government bunker, from the continuity of government, and there's this moment where they realize that the bad guys have clean, fresh underwear.
And extra clean, fresh underwear.
Yeah, that the bad guys they haven't seen underwear. They've worn out all the underwear in this new world. Yes, people can make pants, but cotton undies is a whole different story. People are walking around just commando style, but not the bad guys. The bad guys have got their shit so together. They've got so many resources, they can actually spend them on clean underwear.
Clean underwear. They weren't intrigued by the firepower, the technology. Oh my God, they have underwear, which was awesome.
Yeah. That was a great moment of shorthand for how fucked are we? Well, they have helicopters, they have silencers, they have flamethrowers, they have, a secret base. They're taking over all the missile silos in the country. That's all bad. But the last straw is, oh fuck, they have clean underwear.
Oh fuck that! Yeah, so that was fantastic. So that's another bug virus type thing. Jeremiah was very good. We said Survivors again.
Second season is not as good, but it's got some weaknesses. But it's worth a look if you like yourself some Apocalypse.
Yeah, I believe it might be on. Is it on Netflix? Is at least the first season on Netflix? I think it's something that's available somewhere. I don't remember where though.
It might be.
But it's that's a good TV show. I forgot about that one. But again, that's a good one. Carrie, like I said, we talked about Carriers before, which again, I think it's a great movie.
The Crazies.
The Crazies.
We didn't hit Virus, which is from 1980. Virus was a film made as a Japanese-American production.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. I'd never seen that.
It was made in 1980. The only Japanese name I recognize from the film is Sonny Chiba, who was in a whole lot of Japanese sort of, karate assassin films in the 70s. He was a sort of classic Japanese tough guy. But the basic idea is it's, a plane with the bug on board goes down, crashes, and it gets out, and it starts eating the whole world. As things wind down, the only survivors are the isolated scientific stations in Antarctica. And I can't remember if it's not that the bug can't survive down in the cold, it's just that
it can't get down there easily.
It hasn't gotten down there easily, yes. And so we were talking about, the things that will kill you after the viral apocalypse. Well, there's the problem of all the emergency room problems. Well, Virus's sort of main plot point is that, let's see, Henry Silva, well-known 70s maniac, turns up as General Garland, and he when Glenn Ford has dropped dead, Glenn Ford, the President of the United States, and Robert Vaughn, his close senatorial advisor, have dropped dead in the Oval Office. Runny nose, sick, Henry Silva comes into the Oval Office and activates the fail-safe system, or whatever it's called, which is this it's an automatic launch protocol.
Oh, so it's like a dead hand kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like the dead hand system for the Soviets, and the Russians have a system like this too. And so he activates that system, and then now the computers are running, waiting for whatever criteria are going to come up to tell the missiles to fire. And that can include things like an earthquake. And so part of the story of Virus is the Japanese and the Americans launched this mission to get back to the United States, get to Washington, which you can get to from the coast not too terribly. It's not like getting to Moscow. But if they can get to Washington and get inside the Pentagon, they can penetrate inside and turn off the system before it nukes them, even though they managed to survive the viral apocalypse. Because they're just waiting for the virus to die out so they can sort of reoccupy the Earth. But, gee, if there's a nuclear war, that's going to suck dick.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you survived all this, but guess what?
Yeah, here comes the fallout. Yay!
Here comes the fallout. So, let's just hit a couple more movies real briefly, then we'll start wrapping up here. Because we were talking about, again, as we're getting more to contemporary things, well, I guess whenever it was the fantastic film with Dustin Hoffman about viral...
Yawn.
Outbreak.
Yeah.
Not very exciting.
This is the only movie ever to make a fuel air bomb boring. I'm just going to say right now.
Yeah.
You guys managed to make a fuel air bomb boring. And by the way, they didn't make it boring in Jeremiah.
Nope.
Because there was that whole thing where the guys find all the fuel air bombs at the
It was the Daisy Cutters.
Yeah. Yes. That episode was actually pretty goddamn good. Not the least of which because the bad guys, well, you can't drop the Daisy Cutters. They got no planes. So they just put them in the back of trucks and drive them over next to the town they want to obliterate.
Yeah, because
set them off.
Yeah, because as we were talking about, like in the reference back, you're talking about the Stand, about trying to find the nukes. They do that. They do that in Jeremiah, where the bad guy took, like you said, took over the military base, had all these Daisy Cutter bombs, and was trying to control the area. And they're like, "Oh, you're not going to do nothing." Okay, boom, sets off the Daisy Cutter, blows up the town to set an example. And he has more. He has like there's hundreds of them there, so he's basically all powerful as long as he can get the bombs to you.
Yeah. But so we got Jeremiah. We covered that. You were going on with Outbreak. Boring.
We don't even need to talk about it. Not very interesting.
Less boring is the Sonnenberg film.
Outbreak.
The Outbreak was the Dustin Hoffman film.
No, not Contagion.
Contagion. Contagion's much better film.
It's much better. It's not bad. It's still kind of. I mean, it was interesting from the fact that how they do the whole tracing of how it spread, which is kind of like that. Well, they kind of do that in Plague. M3, the Gemini strain. Yeah. They do that in that '79 film, like showing how it got out, where it's going, how it continues to spread. So they kind of did that in that film, and they also do this in Contagion to show they do it kind of in a backwards way because they're trying to find out where it started from. But it was interesting to see the path. How did it spread? How does it get around? How all their plans to keep control kind of fail. And I did like seeing they did get into a little bit of an aftermath, kind of situation where there's less people are just trying to survive. They're still getting hands out. The chaos that's ensued. The guy's like living in fear in his house because he keeps on hearing his neighbor's house is being broke into and gunshots and people getting killed. So it does get into that a little bit, it was kind of nice to see that kind of as it's going down, which how I always love. I like to see the breakdown. I want to see how did we get from pre-event to post-event. I do like seeing how it went down.
And one of the parts I always like in those movies that cover that is that the sort of horror story of crisis management. Which they did very well in the original Crazies. The remake of the Crazies, you never leave the main character, so you never see the guys in an office somewhere making decisions, getting more drunk, perhaps, as the situation unravels.
Well,
they do in The Stand.
The only thing you really see in the Crazies remake is you kind of see that occasionally you see some government people in black vans and helicopters, and occasionally that eye in the sky, electronic eye, satellite view. That's about it.
I got to point out that one of the scariest moments, though, the really freaky moment for me in the remake of Crazies, was where after they first reported the problem somehow up the chain of command the sheriff had, and he hadn't heard anything back, goes to bed that night, gets up the next morning, and the cell phones aren't working. All the cell phone towers are down. All the phone lines are down. He goes out in the main street, and every fucking car in Main Street
got a boot on it.
Has a boot on it. I'm just like, oh, that's not good. The government is. We're helping. We're here to help.
Well, they are helping. They're helping themselves.
Everybody else, you've just fallen onto the acceptable losses side of the spreadsheet. That moment was really good.
Yeah, and that has some good scenes with they're trying to round the people up and how that all fails, and there's a lot of good tense scenes with with the people in the hospital and the guy with the pitchfork. There's some good stuff in that film. There's a lot of good stuff in that film. But in Outbreak, and again back to Contagion just real quick. Like I said, it's good to see that. But it got a little they got a little bit too much into the whole conspiracy theory stuff with the journalist and all that kind of BS. That was a little boring.
I liked that the conspiracy theory turned out to be bullshit. That there was this whole thing where our journalist is selling this conspiracy theory, to the public, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what's actually happening. But people are reacting to it, and panicking and making the situation worse.
Yeah, it was just some bad pork from China. That was about that was about it.
Yeah, some bats pooped on some pigs,
Exactly.
and then everybody dies.
Everybody dies. And there is another viral. One more thing. There is a viral book called Earth Abides.
Yes.
That unfortunately, I'm a bad person. I don't read like I used to, so I've only gotten partially into the book. But that book was written, I believe, in like the 1950s. I want to say it's kind of old. So again, it's interesting to read these books from these perspectives of before modern technology. But it's kind of like a bug thing. It's a bug thing. The guy's isolated, gets the disease, and then he starts traveling around the country, just kind of documenting things because I believe he was like an environmentalist or a scientist.
Yeah. Yeah. That one I've never read either.
I've read it a little bit, and I also downloaded. I actually found a copy of it. There is a novelization of the Survivor series that was written.
Oh,
the original Terry Nation one. So I actually found an e-version of that because that's the only way you can really get it now. It's so if somebody did that, so that's out there too. So I've downloaded that. I haven't started reading that yet. It's just curious to see how it compares to the TV series and how they condense that. So
yeah.
There's
one other film I'm just trying to look up. Warning Sign. There you go. Warning Sign was a movie about bio warfare, and
it rings a bell.
The apocalypse only happens inside the facility. It's got like Sam Waterston in it, the town sheriff. Kathleen Quinlan is the guy who's she's the girlfriend who's trapped inside the facility. Yaphet Kotto plays the military guy who's brought in to contain the facility. And I would like to point out that it's one of the first movies I saw Jeffrey DeMunn in. Now, Jeffrey DeMunn's a really good character actor who turned up in The Walking Dead. Remember? He's the older. He's not Glenn. I'm forgetting the other character he played in The Walking Dead.
Dale? Was he Dale? He's the older guy?
Yeah, he's Dale. He's Dale. You're absolutely right. He's Dale. So it was the first movie I ever saw Jeffrey DeMunn in and thought, wow, this guy's really fucking good, playing the alcoholic scientist who used to work at the facility but was like, fuck it, I can't make this shit anymore. It's all, so horrible. And Sam Waterston has to go get him and help him break into the facility to rescue his wife. And it's not bad, but what's interesting about it to me was the bug. The bug is the rage virus. The bug is the bug from the Crazies again, basically. People seem to love when it's time for a viral apocalypse. It's not enough that you just get sick and fall over dead. You have to get violently, murderously crazy before you fall over dead.
Oh yeah, because you're not just dying from the disease. You got to fight off the people who have the disease. So it ups the ante a lot.
Yes, and one thing I would like to point out is there was a book I remember called Among Madmen, and it was actually it was kind of a novel in that it had some really interesting illustrations inside it. I may have a copy right here, but it had some really interesting illustrations inside it, like it had possibly been pitched as a comic book, and then somehow failed. Didn't take off. It's another one where there's a viral apocalypse, but the virus is something that makes people into murderous psychopaths who run around. Yeah, because that's what diseases do.
Yeah, they do.
Speaking of comic books, we should probably name drop Crossed, which is a viral apocalypse that produces a rage zombie-like problem. And that's been going on for a while. There's maybe 3 years. Crossed has been out. CROSSED.
I've heard of it, but I never read it.
Yeah, and then there's Y, the Last Man, which you may or may not be familiar with. Which is this bug apocalypse killed everybody with a Y chromosome.
Yeah, I started reading that a while ago, and I couldn't read it after a while. It got just I don't know. It didn't rope me in, and then the artwork was just terrible. I just couldn't.
Yeah, I haven't read it either. Friends of mine have read Crossed, been very, very happy with Crossed. I never got into Why the Last Man, but I just throw it out there because it is viral apocalypse.
It is viral, of course.
We should. I think we're winding it up. I don't think we. I mean, yeah, we've mentioned The Stand. You know.
Yeah. Well, we could do a whole show on that. Yeah. There's so many things that eventually we'll delve deeper into, and some things we've already delved deep into, like we delved deep into Survivors a while ago. So everything's going to cross each other over. But we wanted to do more of a theme this time, a little more like talk about viral apocalypses. Because again, we've had people request that, so it's kind of interesting, and we'll probably do other shows like this, whether it be, a nuclear apocalypse or supernatural apocalypses, or as me and Scott talked offline about monster apocalypses. We're still digging deep. We're still digging into that.
I thought of another one. I thought of another monster apocalypse. The Mist. The Mist is a monster apocalypse.
Yes, it is.
The apocalypse is monsters.
Yep.
Not, so that's a one I forgot about completely.
So did I. Fantastic film. Love that film.
Yeah.
Very, very happy ending. Love that film. But
upbeat and cheerful.
It is. It's a feel good holiday movie. Absolutely.
for all the family.
It is.
Just shot in the face.
Well. My tradition. My Christmas Eve tradition has become watching The Road. So there you go.
That's another family affair. Oh my God.
Well, just in brief, so we don't. That came out a couple years ago during the holiday season in November. Wasn't received very well because the holiday season is supposed to be happy, and it's not a very happy movie. Then it was a limited release, then it came out a little wider release, but it was still very limited. Now, I went to see it a second time because it got to an art house theater that was closer to my house, and I wanted to see it again, but the last time it was playing was Christmas Eve of that year. So I said, well, I got nothing going on Christmas Eve. Let me go watch The Road again on Christmas Eve. So ever since then, so the last 3 years, watching The Road has become my Christmas Eve tradition. So there you go.
There you go. All right, well, let's wrap this up for today, and actually see if we can get one in under, 2 hours?
Under an hour. But, okay, next 2 weeks from now, folks, I'm not sure what we're going to be doing yet. Me and Scott will talk offline about what we want to do. Maybe we'll do Monster Apocalypses. We can find some more stuff. Maybe we'll do that, and then that's it. I don't know. I don't really got much else for anybody. I don't have many last words this week because again I'm doing the like I said, the move apocalypse going on. So after we're done with this, I got to do more packing. So
I would like to point out that something that's trying to suck me in right now is an old, well-worn apocalypse, and that's Fallout New Vegas. Because I discovered that just by poking around online, I discovered that like Fallout 1 and 2, Fallout New Vegas. As again, opposed to Fallout 3 that didn't have this, Fallout New Vegas actually has a whole lot of ways that it changes the game if you take a really stupid character. If you take a character with an intelligence of less than 3, your character is reduced to caveman-like grunts and getting everything wrong. Constantly saying the wrong thing, constantly, saying, things like, instead of saying my interest is scientific, it says me am scientific and me want cookie. I mean, that's your
wow, really? Does it really do that?
Yes. There's a lot of encounters like some guy says, "Oh, son, you can't go down there. It's filled with legion snakes. Snakes small. You should smash snakes." No, son, you're special, aren't you? Yes, me special.
Wow. So basically it's Mongo.
Yeah, you become Mongo. You just become this total dullard, and over and over again, there are options for you to, be incredibly dumb and say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing. And like in Old World Blues, there's that bit where your brain, your heart, and your spine have been removed, and part of the game is trying to find your brain and put it back in your body. Well, when you find your brain is actually talking to you, and your retard's response is, "Me brain can talk. Can heart and spine talk too?" And I'm like, oh God, that's That's what I want to. So I'm sorely tempted to play the game playing Mongo meets the Wasteland.
I may have to break that out again just for that experience. So, all right.
They didn't do it in 3, but they definitely had that as a very wide option in Fallout 1 and 2. And just think, Jared, an adult with a job and a paycheck had to write all the retard dialogue, all the special retard dialogue that only shows up when you're really retarded.
That's a normal person would say that's wrong, but I don't know.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
It's kind of cool. But all right. So my final words to everybody, as usual, is as always, please be social media responsible. If you like the show, if you're following the show, remember to like it on Facebook if you haven't. Follow us on Twitter. Tell your friends, get them to watch, like things, like the broadcasts. When you watch it on YouTube, you can always go back to it and watch it later. And as I promised, I am working on the audio part. It's just that again, I've had excuses. I got a lot of other bullshit going on, but once the bullshit's over, I'm gonna start working on that. So
you're migrating. You've got to stay mobile enough to scavenge, ruthless enough to pillage. To get that gasoline or whatever it is you're looking for in your apocalypse.
Well, that besides, I'm being watched anyway. So
always being watched.
There's monkeys all over this house. That's all I got to say. Okay, so they're always watching.
All right, we're out of here.
All right, we're out of here, folks. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate it, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. But we'll be back on our normal Monday. Again, we just had a little bit of conflicts to do Monday this week, but we did Tuesday. We'll be back on Monday. Whatever that date is, I don't know. But 2 weeks from Monday, we'll be on 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So, Friends of the Apocalypse, we bid you good night.
Good night, folks.